Vera thought the Thalmor would have an apoplectic fit right then and there, and then the guards would somehow manage to charge them with murder. What in the ever-loving fuck had she gotten herself into? The Thalmor's eyes traveled towards the wall. And who is this Undnar then? Spoken like he had just stepped into something unsavory and was now trying to scrape it off his boot. Please, Vera thought, trying to hold on to the last shreds of sense. Please don't tell him he's your cousin from Morrowind. Why, he's my future bride's bodyguard, of course. Wouldn't want someone to steal her from under me, now would I? Isn't that right, my Snowberry? Motherfucker. Vera thought. At her back, the Undnar was overcome by a coughing fit. Ouroboros cocked an imperious eyebrow. Damn, Ash. It sticks with you. By the sound of it, Demon Chops was trying to cover a laugh, the bastard. Vera took another fortifying gulp of ale. All things being equal, she might as well play along. Whatever got the Justiciar out of their hair faster. She turned to Undnar. I will remind you that we haven't agreed to anything yet. It came out suitably incensed. In fact, you haven't even proposed properly. What kind of woman do you think I am, Undnar? She cranked up the outrage, which wasn't too far a stretch anyway. And then she turned her most winsome smile on the Justiciar. He didn't look won over one bit, so Vera returned her gaze to the blasted Nord, who had somehow managed to finish all of his eggs and was already making forays into the leftovers of her. Isn't that right, dearest? Undnar put on a show of chastised sheepishness. Quite right. Quite right. So, Justiciar, if you don't mind, I have a marriage proposal to discuss. Savages. Ouroboros pivoted on his heels, gesturing with a closed fist at his two goons, and the three marched out of the tavern. Undnar tucked the amulet back under his armor and grinned his chipped smile. So, Snowberry, now that that's done, you ready to talk business? So what is it that you lost? Undnar, now equipped with another plate of potato hash with skeever gravy and garlic bread, motioned, "Wait," with his fork, drained half of his second mug of ale, pointed the fork at Sero, who was still adding unnecessary structural integrity to the wall, and, finally, waved at one of the freshly vacated chairs. The arrival of the Thalmor had scattered about half of the patrons. Grubbin, shit. Grab one and come sit. Vera translated after staring uncomprehendingly for a few blinks, though grubbin shit was a serviceable description of the general state of affairs, too. Demon Chops went off to retrieve the chair, angled it such that he could still watch the room, plonked down, one ankle over a knee, and extracted his satchel of smoking mixture. Since it was looking like they were going to be in the tavern for a while, Vera caught Frabby's gaze and mouthed, "Miriam tea," then snatched a bread roll. You never know when your next meal might be, and all that. Well, lass, this is where I must disabuse you of your mistaken notion. Undnar passed his hand over his beard, flicking the bits of food thus collected onto the floor. I'm not looking for something I lost. As I said, I'm looking for something I misplaced. Vera raised an eyebrow. Is there some fine nuance I'm missing here? She hadn't pegged Undnar for the punctilious sort. The Nord belched, tapping his chest to dislodge the trapped air bubble before tearing off a piece of bread to chase around the leftover gravy. Of course, there's a difference. It's misplaced, which means, pay attention now. It's in the word itself, that it's missing from the place where it should be. And what place is that? Perfunctory question at that point. Vera had a pretty good idea where this was going. Why, in my possession, of course. Fucker, Vera thought, and stuffed bread into her mouth, in case she got a bit too tempted to tell the Nord what she thought of his linguistic acrobatics. She should have known this was one of those grave-robbing scenarios. What else would this Nord, with his Undnar merc in tow, want from a local guide? There were plenty of old barrows. Two smaller ones, Vera had even explored in search of grave tar for Undnar. The Altmer had warned her that the local Nord dead were of the restless variety. The barrows, as far as she could tell, were designed to keep the dearly undeparted from running around the countryside. Keep to the entrance areas, Lavinar had admonished, and do not disturb the armored corpses. Then, there was the process of scraping off grave tar, black resinous gunk used, she guessed, for preserving the mummies, from the places where it accumulated, mostly in the hollows, such as armpits, mouth, and groin area. Not particularly pleasant work. Rabbi brought tea, and Vera leaned back in her chair, warming her hands on the mug cradled between her palms. The Nord was in no hurry to elaborate, probably waiting for her to ask for clarifications. He had moved on from stuffing his stomach to stuffing his pipe. If they were grave robbers, then perhaps this played out in her favor in the end. She would point out the barrels' locations. She could even take them as far as the entrance. And then they could go crawl around in the tunnels to their heart's content, and she'd mind the camp outside. 500 septims, Bothela had said, even if Undnar, the mad and demon chops, didn't make it out, she'd still be left with almost a third of the full bribe. Right. No skin off her back. The itchy feeling at the base of her nape made her glance up. She had drifted off into her thoughts. The Undnar was watching her with a mixture of amused curiosity and speculation, likely waiting to see how she would react to his employer's semantic gymnastics. So, she took another sip of tea. I take it you're looking for someone to help you loot. Loot? Undnar puffed up like an amorous pigeon. I am no vulgar looter, Snowberry. Doesn't take much skill to do that. No, but first things first. He unclipped the leather purse from his belt and slammed it on the table, narrowly missing his plate. It's all there. It's all there. 150 up front. I am a man of principles, lass. Bringing in a new partner ain't shoving coins down a wench's blouse. There are risks involved. We'll do this right. Vera eyed him dubiously. How did Demon Chops put up with this troll? Probably because they were cut from the same less than upstanding cloth, was how. In my experience, shoving coins where they're not wanted is always risky business. Minimally, you'll lose the coins, with nothing to show for it but your bruised pride. The Nord's laughter boomed through the tavern, collecting a few curious glances. Firebrand, aren't you? I like you, Snowberry. Are you saying you don't want the money? I'm saying jingling some coins in my face isn't going to make me take a deal when I don't know what I'm walking into. You still haven't explained what it is that you've misplaced. Fine, Undnar relented. Smart girl. Teldryn, you still have that map? Let's not keep the lady in the dark, Give it a moment, I'll explain. You can count the coins in the meantime. Vera pointedly ignored the satchel in front of her. The drawstring had come loose, and the gold inside caught the firelight. The septims looked exceptionally clean, as if someone had spent time polishing them. Cyril blew smoke out the side of his mouth, pinched his lips over his roll-up to free up his hands, and went rummaging in his pack. He extracted a folded note, crumpled and stained with grease, and passed it to Undnar. Anything else? A perfect melange of derisive and deferent. No matter how much he liked coin, the merc didn't exactly seem to enjoy being ordered around. Vera glanced at the note. In addition to the other damage, it had a very suspicious brown stain along the edge. She hoped it was just dried blood. Either way, she wasn't going to touch that thing with a 10-foot pole. Undnar pushed his plate to the side and smoothed out the paper on the table between them. And there you have it. That moment in the old sagas when our fearless adventurers pore over a mysterious map that will lead them to their destiny, he declaimed, a gleeful twinkle in his eyes. Behold, Snowberry, the map. We were hoping you'd start by helping us make sense of it. Vera cocked her head to one side. That didn't help, so she cocked it the other way. Not an improvement. You call that a map? She was genuinely curious. Looks like a map to me, Cyril drawled. What would you call it, Outlander? Vera glanced at the merc. I'd call it a doodle, but I could be swayed into amending it to scribble if you're persuasive. As a map, if that's what it is, it's unusable, though I suppose you could wipe your ass with it in a pinch. Damn it, even in this place, There should be some standards for what passed for cartography. Not to your liking? Something dark flashed under the layer of raspy sarcasm. Vera didn't think his face could do soft even if he tried it. No wonder he'd gone into hiring out his sword arm. He certainly looked the part. Should have asked the fetcher to apply himself, I suppose. He dragged on his rolly, holding the smoke in before blowing it out in a quick hiss. Pity I slit his throat first then. And now, there was an unmistakable warning in his voice, lazy drawl notwithstanding. Vera tensed. Her bow was unstrung. Not that a hunting bow did you much good in a close fight, as she wouldn't reach her dagger in time, not against the merce. Undnar looked like he'd be slower, masked of velocity and all that, but the Undnar was all coiled compact energy. Zero, you keep trying to intimidate the lass, and I'll dock your pay. Now, Snowberry, before you bring the guards down on us. Undnar patted the diagram. We lifted this off a bandit. Didn't go searching for trouble either. But there we were, walking, just minding our manners, and there they were, and, well, you can imagine the rest. Vera breathed out, forcing the tension to drain from her muscles. Her mind had conjured up a rather different scenario. She took a sip of tea, sloshed the liquid around, focusing on the heat. We're not our history. No, Dima, love, we are our history. Something about what she said had hit a nerve with demon chops, and he had lashed out, or rather, showed his teeth. She filed it away, forcing herself to look at the Undnar, face open, serious. Nothing wrong with killing bandits. Easy there, asshole. I'm not your enemy. Just stopped commissioning them for drawing you maps, yeah? She got herself a chuckle for that one. Slight surprise, oversized pupils widening, then a shift, his shoulders easing. He took another drag, blew smoke to the rafters, a perfect ring drifting into a distended oval. If you have better candidates in mind, I'm all ears. Point is, lass, we need you to help us decipher this less than satisfactory doodle, as you said. We know it's a map, and we need to get to wherever it's pointing. Undnar had shed his jovial dumbass act. For a moment, he looked almost grave, but then Frabai brought him another ale, and the happy buffoon mask came back on. Vera leaned forward, examining the lines of the drawing. Now that she was focusing on it, the sketch wasn't so nonsensical, but you couldn't draw a map if you kept yourself on the ground. Your mind had to take wing. This wouldn't tell them the distance, just the vantage point of where the doodler had stood. All right. That right here? She tapped the squiggle, vaguely reminiscent of an anvil. Could be the Zenithar shrine, and if so, then that here looks like it's the peak northeast of the island with the old temple. She glanced at Undnar to see if he was following. Crickets. They really didn't know the area. All right then. That dotted line, I'm guessing, means you have to go around it. And this looks like... Her lips went numb. Oh, shit. Undnar's bushy eyebrows lifted in question. What is it, lass? Vera leaned back, crossing her arms over her chest. Not for all the coin in Scryam. She wasn't. That's Red Eagle Redoubt. This time, the look Undnar gave her wasn't so blank, but he hid it well, washing down the flash of recognition with more ale. Vera turned to the Undnar, one of the largest forsworn camps this side of Markarth. Demon Chops quirked an eyebrow, the corner of his mouth hitching up. I'll remember to be suitably impressed. Can you take us there, girl? Vera forced her shoulders into a shrug. No. Undnar and Ciro exchanged a look. I'm not going anywhere near that place, but I'll bring you close enough, and then you're on your own. Not her funeral, no skin off her back. She pulled out her own map, unfolding it over her knees since the table was stained and crowded with empty dishes. Undnar squinted at the drawing after attempting, and failing, to move his chair. What's this then? That's a proper map. Looks like doodles to me, lass. No offense, just more of them. The Undnar leaned forward, his eyes tracking across the paper. What are those concentric lines? Vera looked up, nodding. Not a bad question. Not a bad question. Elevation. And these numbers here? He tapped an elongated dark gray fingernail against the legend. The merc had nice hands, Vera thought suddenly. Long, strong fingers with clearly defined joints. Pale scar across 3 knuckles on the left one. She peeled her eyes away, refocusing. That's my own notes. Mostly idiosyncratic stuff. Won't be that useful to you. Ciro seemed curious, though, and she didn't see any harm in elaborating. I keep a record of how long it takes me to get places, depending on the season and the weather. I see. What about the overlay right here? The side of his hand brushed against her wrist as he reached around. Surely not doodles. Vera chuckled and tried to ignore the way her skin tingled at the brief contact. The merc ran hot. At this distance, she could feel the heat coming off him, presumably a difference in base bodily temperature, since he didn't look fevered. Some species adaptation, perhaps. These marks are where I've spotted large predators. Square for bear, circle for saber cat, crosses for wolves. She tapped her finger next to where he was pointing. See? This cave here used to just have skeevers. About 3 months ago, a she-bear moved in with 2 cubs. The younger one died. Wolfpack got to him. So she's gone a bit touchy. So while this road here shows up on the maps you might buy on the market, it's no good for a lone traveler. And what are these? Ah, right. That was her.